In the constantly changing world of fundability, the big question is this: how are entrepreneurs and real estate investors like us, ones who want to grow our businesses and who are tired of paying for really expensive alternative lending, how do we tap into the most inexpensive money available and do it without the hassle of typical borrowing? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. Welcome to the Get Fundable podcast with your host, Merrill Chandler.
Okay, everybody, Merrill Chandler here, your guide to the Get Fundable universe. And in this episode of the Get Fundable podcast, we're going to be talking about consumers versus borrowers. We're going to kind of take a detailed look at what it means to be a consumer and what it means to be a borrower. So when we come back, we're going to jump right into it. I'm glad you're with me today. Welcome, everybody. Merrill Chandler here, your guide to the Get Fundable universe. And in this particular instance, podcast heaven. This is the Get Fundable podcast, and I'm excited to share with you today. Remember how we talk about terms? Everything's about definitions. Everything's about our understanding, right, of what's going on. Well, in this episode, we're talking about consumers versus borrowers. The use of the terms, what they mean, why people use them, and how we can elevate ourselves from being just a regular old consumer to a borrower, not just a borrower, but the perfect borrower, a professional borrower. So let's get into this. First of all, for decades, it started really in the 40s and the 50s, but the use of the term consumer has basically been used as to define all of the members of our financial, all of the users in our financial world, right? In our economy, you got the producers, right, who make stuff, and then you got the consumers who use stuff, right? They consume it. They consume foods. They consume. They're buying cars. They're consuming everything. And when you have producers and consumers, this goes back even further than the 40s, back to the Marxist and the Communist Manifesto about who has the capital and everything you need to know about being part of the consumer base, and all the capital is held by the producers. Well, as I do so many times in so many places, we are redefining the terms, right? We are not, you will rarely, if ever, will you hear me refer to you and to the people who are in our economy as consumers. I believe it's kind of a lowbrow reference when I hear the economists talk about it, when I hear the political pundits talk about it, the financial pundits, everybody who talks about, yeah, consumers want more of this, consumers want more of that, right? I mean, it just makes us sound like we're greedy and hungry. And to one degree or another, we've been lied to about how all of that, how we've come to our current state of affairs. So what this episode's all about is, how do we move from being a consumer to be known as a borrower? Now, a borrower is part of a partnership. And the reason why I like borrower, some people might say, hey, that's just as much of a pejorative term or a negative term as a consumer is. And I would disagree. So here are the points that I want you guys, and you determine, are you a consumer or do you want to be a borrower? Borrowers are in partnership with lenders. Lenders do not have dreams, you guys. They have quarterly returns that they're working on. They don't have dreams and ambitions. Borrowers do. Borrowers want a new home. Borrowers want a new house. Same thing. Borrowers want a new investment property. Borrowers want a new car. Borrowers want to have access to good travel benefits in a good credit card that's going to help them get to be able to get rewards and points and rebates back from using credit. Borrowers are a contributing member of our society, especially of our financial system, whereas consumers, you don't have to partner with lenders to be a consumer. All you have to do is just consume, right? You can do that in any number of ways. If you've read my book, the New F Word, if you've got a copy of it, the New F Word, which is happened to hit bestseller list, guys. I was super excited about it. In my book, The New F Word, we talk about different types of animal totems, right? Borrowers, borrower energy, borrower profiles that match certain animals. So think of a credit eagle as a perfect borrower, that professional borrower, a borrower who knows how to use other people's money to leverage for your financial dreams, compared to like a credit seagull. A seagull is a consumer just picking up scraps, doing the best you can, right? Grabbing whatever's left over, not necessarily intentionally creating the results that you want to create, an intentional design of your financial life. So again, that's where I separate a consumer is, if not thoughtless, then at least programmed to just buy. Sometimes these consumers put it on credit, but sometimes not. They just consume. But to be a borrower is not enough for me. I want you to be the perfect borrower. I want you to be the perfect customer for lenders, because if you meet all of their underwriting guidelines, if you meet that bullseye in the, sometimes I've referred to it as a bullseye borrower, but if you're a perfect customer for a lender, then you are literally in a partnership, and that partnership is insanely productive because you get to help the banks and lenders meet their quarterly goals. They get to help you fulfill your financial and business dreams. So think of it this way. In my most recent podcast, it's an episode about deceptive advertising, right? And it's called How Marketers Ruin Your Credit. So look for that. But if for more information about that's a very vital podcast, because in it we talk about how they just throw all of these offers at you because they want you to pick up the scraps and charge you high interest and help them and help you, because responding to all those offers puts you in a financial and a credit hole. That will teach you how to stay out of that hole. But that's exact behavior. Responding to those offers literally makes you a consumer. It's like, gimme, rather than strategically using your borrower profile, your borrower behaviors, your financial reputation to create powerful, long-lasting relationships with banks and lenders so that they invest in you, right? Now, if you're falling to these consumer offers, that's a pretty good definition of being a consumer, right? But we want you to, as a professional borrower, as this perfect borrower, we want you to read between the lines and know exactly how to use your credit to leverage your financial dreams. Now, let's illustrate this a little bit further. So in my boot camp, if you haven't been, make sure you go getfundableBootcamp.com. It'll be in the show notes. If you haven't been, oh my word, we go into so much of how to protect yourself from being a consumer and how to be a perfect borrower. But in this, we got consumers on one hand, borrowers on another hand. Now, the borrowers are actually contributing to the economy. Borrowers contribute to the long-term progress of both us individually and the lenders, etc. Consumers, while we can as a consumer, we may contribute to the economy, but we're just buying stuff and we're not necessarily creating a vital loop. Because think about it this way. When you consume something, let's say you go buy a motorcycle for cash. You buy it, you get it, you consume it, you have it for years. And at some point, if you're not a borrower, then you go buy another one. Dave Ramsey preaches to be a consumer. Dave Ramsey wants you to not be in the credit game. He doesn't want you using other people's money. He wants you saving, and he's got some great learnings on how to be a smart and intelligent consumer. But I don't want you to be a consumer at all, because when you are a perfect borrower, when you are a good borrower, right, a pro at this, you literally you purchase that same motorcycle. You pay the lender for advancing you the fees. They make money. They create more deposits to their financials and their P&Ls, which gives them more strength in the economy to lend to you again to buy an automobile, which pays them interest. And this whole entire process makes you look better and better because you're building a deeper and deeper relationship with that same lender. And then once you pay, and then you borrow money for that car, and then you pay it off 24 months or pay it till the end, and then you buy a house. Or maybe you have all three of these loans going at the same time with the same lender. Do you see how rich of a partnership that creates? And I always teach, and I've never deviated from this definition. But for me, interest is simply the gift we give for someone believing in us financially. The gift we give, interest is the gift we give for someone believing in us. And since I frame it that way, instead, they're not taking money from me. I'm investing money in them. And I'm investing in a way that they look at me and they're like, look how generous they were with me. Look how the exchange of finances continues to cycle. Let's put it this way. If there were no borrowers, our entire economy would crash to the ground. But if we have an army of intelligent, capable, grounded borrowers, we will keep the economy moving. In fact, part of the reason why they wanted the SBA student loans, so Sallie Mae, Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac, notice all of these government-backed agencies were designed to keep borrowing going on with regards to business credit, student loans, and home loans. So there is such a vital role for us as borrowers. And I want you to take pride in the fact of you becoming a borrower. Just reframe. That's just a mental choice. Reframe yourself as a borrower instead of a consumer. Refer to yourself as a borrower instead of a consumer. And then we're going to, together through Fundability, through my book, through the boot camp, through and watching all the podcasts, getfundablepodcast.com, through studying and engaging those different platforms, you're going to learn what it means to become a perfect borrower, a true professional that lenders continually want to lend to, because you send them the message that, hey, we're in this together. This is Merrill Chandler, your host of the Get Fundable podcast, and I invite you, challenge you, encourage you to make sure that you are a borrower first. And share the love, love, post, and turn people on to this episode of the Get Fundable podcast, so that your people and your tribe can know as well what it means to be the perfect borrower and be able to fund your dreams using other people's money.
Thank you for listening to the Get Fundable podcast. Please leave comments, because Merrill would love to read about your aha moments from this episode. And be sure to visit getfundable.com to read our blog, get important links, join our community, and much, much more, like ordering Merrill's tell-all book that is changing the world, The New F Word. And you got to tell your friends about this podcast, because we want them to get fundable too.